Good evening, Razorback fans. Welcome to the one, the only Hog Talk podcast, live from the Sterling Soap and Rocio studios. We are part of the Believe and Buzz Radio networks, where you can hear us on all podcast platforms, as well as Buzz 2 106.7 in Central Arkansas. So please like, rate, and review our podcast. And all live shows are presented to you by Arkansas Brewing Company in downtown Ozark. I'm your host, Porter Hayes. Alongside me is Adam Hall. And we're also brought to you by Bet Online. Get the latest odds, lines, and matchup reports for baseball, boxing, golf, and more. BetOnline continues to be the fastest and easiest way to place your wagers, including live betting on your favorite casino and card games available to play right from your phone. Head on over to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and get in on the action. Remember to use the promo code BLEAV for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, where the game starts, and what a brutal loss yesterday. 38-31, BYU comes into Fayetteville, and I put out this morning, Adam, where does this rank on the most frustrating losses? And when I say history, I know the John L. Smith days, I know the Chad Morris days, I know the Citadel. You know, I just wanted to get the feel. Where did this rank? I know this compares nothing to the Citadel and places, but where this program was to be headed this year, where we thought this program would be in year 4 under Sam Pittman, where we thought the offensive line, where we thought, Danny, everything. And we talked preseason about the importance of this season with OU and Texas coming into the league next year, how important it was to bounce back and to have that type of game. That's where I put it as frustrating, and I want to get your thoughts on that.
I would say if I'm not going back to like the Citadel, John L. Smith, Chad Morris, I mean, I'm kind of looking back at the 2015 Toledo game. Just this game, I mean, I know we both picked the 10-point difference, Arkansas winning, and it just is completely not what anybody predicted. We didn't, we started off the game hot, high. I mean, there was all hype, and we're up 14-0, and then just sucked the air out of everything after they went up 21-14. Actually, before that, but when it kept on,
it was that next drive. They had a 3-and-out again, and had a chance to, really, go up 21-0. I mean, again, when we were talking about this season, you have to dominate these teams. You're getting ready for a brutal 4-game stretch. You had them on their heels. You're up 14-0 on 2 big plays, a big run by A.J. Green, and then that punt return, which if you would have blinked, you thought it was Joe Adams back there returning the punt. I mean, it just gave you that type of vibes. You're rocking. It's 6:30, 7 o'clock at night in Fayetteville. The stadium's rocking at that momentum, and then you could just kind of feel it a little bit of when that drive just stalled and then another one stalled. And before you know it, you're down. Mm-hmm. And one, got to give a shout out to Pat McAfee, being the lone guy on the island that went with BYU. And then there was some crazy yahoo on Twitter. I don't know if you've seen it or not. Was talking about he's seen some of the BYU players in an elevator, was talking about how small they were. And you look at this line and how they pushed Arkansas around. That's why another reason why I say this is a very frustrating game, because you just see, what you have looming ahead. You know what you have coming up. This is that last dress rehearsal. This is where you need to put a statement. BYU coming into the Big 12. This is one of them where the SEC has not done well at all against Power 5. They were now, I believe, 4-7 against other Power 5 conferences, being the least of the Power 5 conferences. And you just let them come into your house and push you around. And when you are the better team, you can't give them that momentum to get back in the game. And you did it twice. You're up 14 points, and then you were up 10 points. So it wasn't like there wasn't another swing, another chance, but it was. That's why I say when it's up there with the most frustrating losses, because I had this team as an 8-9 win team. I have to still stand by it no matter what they go 3-4, because I'm not going to change my prediction. But you have to judge this as a 9-win team. And what I seen, the defense looked pretty good last night, and we're put in some tough spots. But You can't, even in that aspect, you can't give that busted run play like they did.
No, with the offensive line, it was, when we were moving the ball in the second half or second, it was, you got the push, you got the movement, even on the pulls from the offensive line. But the majority of the game, they were getting stood up and pushed back. KJ's, with Dan Enos's offense, KJ is going to need to, or is supposed to go through, 4 to 5 reads. That's what Dan Enos' offense is for the quarterback. And he can't even get through 1 to 2 before he's having to take off running or move, or the pocket's collapsing, whatever, because the line was just getting pushed around left and right. And I don't know if we've seen the reasons or the excuses from Coach Pittman, with the hand injuries, which I still don't understand. If there's hand injuries, club them up, cast them up, tape it, whatever. But, that still didn't stop all the holding penalties that we got.
Yeah, and you look at the rushing attack right here. AJ Green, 9 carries for 86 yards, but he had that 55-yard run, the long run. So you take away that. There's 8 carries for 30-something yards. Then you look at DeBinion, 13 for 47. He had a long run of 15 yards. So you take that away, you're going 12 carries for 30-something yards. KJ Jefferson, 13 carries, 21 yards, long of 19. So 13 carries for 2 yards.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yes, you look and you had 177 yards rushing, and you averaged, on average, I seen somebody put out a stat when they were talking about the average. Well, they averaged 3 or 4 yards a carry. Well, when you have big runs, you got 55 and then 19, 15, and 13, but yet you take that away from their totals. I mean, they were only giving up a few big plays, and then, of course, the punt return. I mean, if you don't look at this stat right here, you look at how Arkansas outgained them, outpassed them, outrushed them, but then you get down to the penalties. 14 penalties for 125 yards, and it felt like that last drive they got penalized 14 times by themselves. That was another killer when it comes to this game.
Yeah, because, every other thing, like you were saying, total yards, time of possession, it was in Arkansas's favor. The 2 fumbles, I'm not saying I couldn't believe them, but it just came as a shocker, especially after, going in the first 2 games, in which I know the opponents were what they were, but no turnovers going into this game. And then to have 3, which I think they have us down for.
Well, we got one of those fumbles.
We got one back, yeah.
Yes.
So, it's just, it kills everything that you have. And, I was noticing with the running backs, it felt like they were having to create their runs.
Mm-hmm.
There was no holes. They were having to reverse field. They were getting into the East-West game, which just is not there. It doesn't work, especially with the offensive scheme that's being ran.
Yeah, and for the most part too. They were holding the receivers in check. They were. BYU come to play, and I don't know if it was the fact that they were seeing the bulletin board material. No matter how you say that, and people like us might have played a part into it. We weren't giving BYU a chance to win this game. We just assumed Arkansas was going to win this game. We said, at the beginning of the show, we both had this 10-point wins, but it is very well that BYU's gotten better and Arkansas's regressed. And it's hard. And for all the people coming out and showing their frustrations, you got to stand by the fans on this. How they do it. I know there's people who go to the extremes and they're calling for jobs and calling out players by name and all that. But man, this is one of them. We said before the season, you got to drop your nuts this season. You got to come out to play. You got to show us. We get to see all these hype videos. We get to see all this stuff of how we're going to be bigger, we're stronger, we're faster. You can't even hardly compete with West Carolina and Kent State, and then you get beat by BYU. That's where it's like, all right, when is it time to really be like, okay, let's just shut down social media for a little bit. Let's stop putting out these hype videos for a little bit. Let's come out and prove that this year's going to be different. Let's prove that we're going to come out and be businesslike, and we're going to win these games.
Yeah, because, a lot of the videos in the off season, especially fall camp leading up with Coach Souter and the team, I'm not saying it was a smoke show, but I just feel like there's more to it. I mean, something's got to be up for there to be all this improvement across the board, and then there still being these issues, whether it's mentally or what, I don't know. But it's absurd almost to have the issues that we're having when I know there's a difference between Coach Pittman being offensive line coach and a head coach. I get it, but you have who was perceived as the best offensive line coach in the entire country, and this is how they're performing. It just doesn't make sense.
Well, and another thing we talked about before we started recording, if you want to turn the jukebox up and you want to be the popular guy when everything's going well, and you want to be that one that drinks the cold beer, and I stood up for the guy. You remember when I was sitting there saying, is everybody on the outside just thinking this is a guy who is just the fun guy who wants to drink cold beer? And I think he should come out now and prove to them that he can coach. And this question right here from Mark Rippey is, do you think Briles helped cover up some of Pittman's shortcomings? Even Mr. Trickster and Briles wouldn't have had lined up in the shotgun twice. No, he would have ran a tight end sweep or tight end sneak. So I got to disagree with you on that one. But no, I mean, that falls on both coaches, because one, Enos should have known, because it ain't like they didn't, because he did a pass play under center. If you don't remember, he threw that quick out under center. Mm-hmm. There was things of signs of this team had some things up their sleeves, but they didn't put it out there. And there's no way, especially knowing that the push that Arkansas wasn't getting, why would you sit there and go on a shotgun formation? One, Enos should have never even put that call out there. Two, you're the head coach for a reason. You can overrule that decision. Call you a timeout. Hey, look, we need to get under center. We need to trust our quarterback that he's going to get us this first down. That should have been overturned. So it falls on both of them. You shouldn't put Sam Pittman in that position to begin with, because you should have called a play under center. It'd be different if that's just the style of offense you want to run, but you can't sit there and put him under center on a little screen pass or a little bubble pass. But when it comes down to it, and there was one where they called a timeout and they still went away from it. And then they ended up getting a false start.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you need to dress rehearsal. This was your last dress rehearsal, because I'm telling you right now, another reason why this frustration is here, this team could very well, and more than likely, unless something happens and they just pull their head out of their rear end, this team could be 2-5 by the time they come back to Fayetteville. So
yeah,
for all the people sitting there saying we're jumping to conclusions or we're being too hard on this team, I'm comparing this team to what I thought they were going to be, a 9-win team. You can't lose to BYU. You have to go 4-0 in your non-conference games, and then pray you win 4 or 5 SEC games.
Yeah, I mean, we all talked through the first 2 games after LSU's lost to Florida State, and then they turned around and demolished, I think, Kennesaw State, and then they made Mississippi State look terrible. LSU's done what they're supposed to do, and Arkansas hasn't. I kind of am loathing this game Saturday night, especially night game in Baton Rouge. It's going to be tough. I just truly don't know, going back to the 4th and 1, I mean, you've got a 250-pound quarterback. If he can't get you a half yard to a yard, there's a problem.
If your offensive line can't help you get enough where you can't get 6 inches on an inferior, should have been an inferior team, you're an SEC offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have, let's take BYU out of the equation. If you can't do it against BYU, you weren't doing it. You were barely doing it against Kent State. Now you got to try to do it against LSU. Then you got to turn around and do it. And again, what we talked about last week, LSU and Alabama, especially Alabama right now, how they played against South Florida, they're pissed off. So you know what? Their seasons are not technically over, because the fact that now we're in conference play.
Mm-hmm.
Alabama and LSU both have the affordability that they could both either run the table. I know they got to meet, so the winner of that will have the edge on that. But I'm just talking about in general. If either one of them teams runs the table, they're still going to be – we know how it is. Alabama can run the table. They're going to be in that playoff. They can run the table, win the SEC West, and they're going to be in the college football playoff.
Mhm.
So it's not all lost for them. This is a very, 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 if not the most important game, and I hate that it has to be against LSU. To me, this has to be the most important game of his career because this is going to see how they bounce back.
Mhm.
They don't have to win the game, but they have to make it a close game. They get blown out. If they lose this game 4-14 against LSU, if they just go to Baton Rouge and they're just it's going to be a very long season.
Oh, it's going to be. And I think this game, kind of like we talked on last week, is this game could also determine where some recruits are looking at, how if they, the early recruits, if they start, decommitting, that's all on the table now. If we come up and just lay, and I'm not saying lay a goose egg as and score 0 points, but if we just come out and look how we've been looking, I mean, there's going to be a lot of these early, 25, 26, 2025, 2026 recruits that may be looking the other way. So then everybody that keeps talking about the great recruiting that Pittman has for the next couple seasons, that's still not set in stone. So this game this weekend, especially being on ESPN at 6:00, is going to have a lot of eyes on it.
Well, and even when they get on campus, you still got to fight to keep them. They come in on the freshmen and they realize it's not as what it's cracked up to be. This transfer portal is just totally, and that's where it giveth and taketh away. You're fighting to keep what you've got. You're fighting an uphill battle as it is. And then you turn around and you're putting out performances like this. And I'll say this, the defense, I give them a C. And I was thinking about this last night. How am I going to start grading this team? I'm going to start grading this team on the percentage of the game that I felt like they were being effective. Defense played hell of a game for 70% of the game. C minus. That's where I give it because they gave up some busted plays and some busted coverages. Offense, F. I mean, because you just had a couple of plays. I give them 25% of the game. I felt like they had control of the game and they were in the game because there was a sense of urgency in this last drive. But even then, they were taking too much time off the clock. I mean, KJ was holding on to the ball way too long in some instances. And when we come back from the break, we'll go on to, deep dive into this looking forward to LSU. But there's things with this NIL. There's things that when we talk about the praise and the criticism, you've got to be able to accept both. And it's all glamorous, and we always want to, turn the jukebox on after a win. But when the time gets tough, especially in this new age and this new era of name, image, and likeness, they want the money that comes with it. You got to take the criticism with it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's one of those things which I know we'll touch on more that the days of protecting the players and all that, I mean, to an extent, it's done and gone. You're getting essentially paid. You're a professional to an extent. So, it comes with it. Now there's something, I mean, I don't want anybody out there, setting trucks on fire like happened to Brandon Allen, but it's everybody's entitled to their opinion, but I also think that some need to take a step back, take a deep breath, and maybe read what you write before you hit send.
Yeah. And Matt says, how do you give the defensive C minus when the kicker put them in the situation? I mean, I understand that, but you still got to hold the team accountable. You can't give up that big run, that timely busted run where, his first carry, his first touchdown of his career, against LJ Martin was his name, the one that had the touchdown. And he ended up with 77 yards, but a 45-yard touchdown on that run. You can't, and especially in that momentum when you needed a stop. Just think back to last week when you had Kent State, you had them on the goal line, you got a goal line stand. The defense played very good for 7% of the game. I'm not sitting here. I watched the game. I know when you put them in bad field position, that has things to do with it, but you still have to be a bend, don't break defense. And there was just look at the touchdown pass. That was a heck of a catch by the wide receiver of BYU. Breakdown in the defense. And again, he made one hell of a play, but you still have to hold them accountable for those plays.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm not looking at special teams as part of the defense. That's a whole different entity. So, I looked at during the game, even after Fletcher's 10-yard shank, he's still, which I didn't look it up today, but he's at that point in time still has a longer average than any punter in Arkansas history by about a yard. So, it's going to happen. It just happened at one of the worst possible time that it could happen.
Yeah, he did have two bad punts, but again, and I'm not saying this to be petty or cute. That's a special team still. That if you want to go on special teams, that's another C or D, because what if Cam Little doesn't miss the field goal?
Well, like we talked about, the announcers jinx with calling him automatic. Mm-hmm. Announcers need to stop that stuff.
Yeah. But it's one of them things that a lot of frustration. That's why I really honestly like doing these shows the next day, when everybody can really, get their frustrations back, but really come in with, it's almost like an argument. You're going to get more clarity and more stuff accomplished when you are coming in with a cooler head. Because if we'd have done this last night, it probably wouldn't have been good. And
no.
Just a lot of, we are frustrated. I am very frustrated about the outcome of the game, because I want this team. Because damn it, I want it for the fans. I want it for the fans to have something to, because no matter what, and this comment, Arkansas is not a football. It is a football school. They're not the most successful program, but when you look at the importance of where the fans rank their sports, football's number one. So therefore, it is a football school. That's something that gets lost in this transition of where do you think the importance of these programs are? You gotta put football up there, because one, the revenue, one, the passion that this is an SEC football team. You can't but not say that this is a football school, because they have had success. Yes, basketball has overtaken the success in baseball, but to just sit there and not say that this is not a football school, because I think if you're good enough, you can be a football and basketball school, or a football and baseball school. But
last year, or I think it was last year or the year before, at one point in time, we had all major sports ranked in the top 25. So, it's one of those things. I think there's too many labels put out there when it comes to what type of school you are, what sports-wise, football school, basketball school, blue blood, this, that. And it's just kind of, it gets old hearing after time, week after week.
Yeah. It's just, we've seen this song and dance so many years. I've lived in this state my whole life. I'm 41 years old. I've seen, when the Citadel game and the Stoner, talk about frustrating. It was on the road. That could have been a year that Arkansas was undefeated. They could have won a national championship. They were that talented and that good. And to just one simple play of tripping over an offensive lineman's foot, you lose the game that way. It's that. Then the fish fumble, things like that. You can go on and on. You didn't scoop and score against Ohio State. I've seen them all. And this is the 5th year that we've done this podcast, and we've done this podcast during the Chad Morris years, and look, it's happened. We know what happened during those years. And I guess maybe in a way, did that night, and I'll ask the question, and we're going to take a quick commercial break, but I'll ask the question that's kind of been asked before. Did that 9-win season set all of this thing up to where we jump to conclusions on where this program is? And we'll talk more about that after the break.
Attention DIYers and home improvement enthusiasts. Are you searching for the right tools and the supplies to tackle your next project? Look no further than Mentor's Hardware Store. With locations in Ozark, Alma, and Clarksville, our vast selection of hardware and building materials is sure to have everything you need. Whether you're fixing a leaky faucet or building a new bed, plus our knowledgeable staff is always on hand to offer expert advice and guidance. And with our competitive prices and convenient online ordering, Mentor's Hardware Store is your one-stop shop for all your DIY needs. Visit us today, and let's build something amazing together. Are you in need of legal representation? Look no further than the law offices of Robertson, Beasley, Shipley, and Robinson. As the oldest law firm in the River Valley, we have been serving our clients for over 100 years, with locations in Ozark, Fort Smith, and Spring. Our experienced team of attorneys provide expert guidance and advocacy in a wide range of legal areas, including personal injury, family law, criminal defense, and more. Trust in our history and experience to get the results you deserve. Contact the law offices of Robertson, Beasley, Shipley, and Robinson today at 479-782-8813. That's 479-782-8813. Searching for premium brewery products that will take your daily routine to the next level? Look no further than Sterling Soap Company. Our handmade soaps, aftershaves, and balms are made with only the finest ingredients that give you the ultimate grooming experience. With a variety of scents to choose from, there's something for everyone. Plus, our products are crafted in small batches to ensure the highest level of quality. So why wait? Visit www.sterlingsoap.com or visit our retail store at 16 West Walnut Street in Paris, Arkansas. Shop our collection and discover the difference for yourself. Upgrade your grooming routine with Sterling Soap Company. Are you looking for a place to grab a cold drink and some delicious food? Look no further than Arkansas Brewing Company. Located at 201 South 1st Street in beautiful downtown Ozark, our establishment offers a wide selection of craft beers and tasty eats. But what sets us apart is our welcoming atmosphere and friendly staff. At Arkansas Brewing Company, you'll always feel like part of the family. So visit Destiny and Christopher Brockett and staff today and see for yourself what makes us the go-to spot for locals and visitors alike. Arkansas Brewing Company, come for the drinks and stay for the friends.
And want to welcome you back to the Hog Talk podcast. And what we talked about before the break and posed the question, Adam, do you think, that 9-win season came too soon and it put too much pressure on this, not just this coaching staff, but, this program as a whole?
Well, it's something that we've talked about, since the summer that was it a fluke that this season would be, the kind of the true test on it if that 9-win season was a fluke or not. I think that has put immense pressure on Sam Pittman and this team and our expectations because we saw it done under, Pittman. I know all the other assistants have pretty much changed, but, we keep going back to talking about that season and comparing things to that season. So it's definitely put a lot of the pressure on the team, and it's definitely, I'm not going to say jaded our viewpoints, but it affects it a lot.
Yeah, and Facebook user, I'm sure it comes from either our YouTube page or Hog Sports. It says, why doesn't Pitt take more of a role with the lineman? I mean, when you're a head coach, that's why you have position coaches. And I know he gets a lot of flack because of, he's an offensive line. How can the offensive line look so bad? I mean, that's you got to separate yourself out of that and be a head coach and oversee everything. And it's hard to do when you're taking over an SEC program. So not saying that you can't hold the coaches accountable for their O-line woes and whatever, but you can't insert yourself when you are the head coach. And Matt Sossaman says, one thing I'll say is this firing Pittman nonsense needs to stop. He has coming up the 3 best recruiting classes at Arkansas for 24-26. You fire Pittman, you lose all almost. Well, not necessarily, because you got your assistants that are doing the recruiting too. Yes, Pittman is a big part of it, but what I'm saying is this. You got to look at this grand scheme of where Arkansas is. They're already in the middle of the pack of the SEC and trending towards the lower part of this conference, already as it is. You got OU coming in and Texas coming in. Texas is coming in. Yes, they struggled against Wyoming, but they beat Bama, and that gives them enough momentum coming into this program. No matter how you slice that up, OU's starting to trend upward in that trajectory too. Now there's two schools that you haven't had to really deal with when it comes to recruiting against in your conference. You bring in 3 schools now, including Texas A&M. Now you got OU and Texas in that area where you want to bring in some of your recruits. What is separating them from now going to Texas? What is separating them now from going to OU? Also, there's no more divisions. You don't know who your opponents are going to be when it comes to this, how they're going to do this SEC schedule on a year-to-year basis. I don't know how they're going to do it every 2 years, how they're going to do this cycle. You got to hold on to every single thing that you can get. And I know how long it takes to rebuild. We've seen this since Bobby Petrino, how long it truly takes to rebuild a SEC program. So that being the question, where does this seat start getting warm? I mean, how bad does it get to where his seat starts getting warm? Or do we ride this out and see where this goes?
I'm in the mindset of I'm not on the fire Pittman train. He's our coach. I'm not going to look at, okay, who could we get to replace Pittman? I'm tired of seeing Gus Malzahn comments, Deion Sanders comments, this, that, and the other. It's not going to happen. Sam Pittman's who we have. Is he on the hot seat? I think he is a little bit. I think it's getting warm.
Mm-hmm.
Is he on the outs of it potentially, like another bad loss, or I say an embarrassing loss to LSU or A&M? No, it's not going to be it. But it's one of those things that you've got to start. I kind of look at a lot of our coaches that have left on their own. Is Sam Pittman going to put his foot down and let somebody go himself if there's an issue? And I'm not saying that I'm just going to use Cody Kennedy as the example with the offensive line issues. If that's not addressed, does Pittman just write it out? Does Cody Kennedy leave on his own, or does Pittman make an example of somebody?
Well, and that's another thing that's confusing is we thought he'd done that with Odom. He even said at the touchdown club, well, we're talking about making changes. Well, I don't want to lose my job, so we have to make changes, and we got to let some people go. I mean, so now it's like, yes, I understand you're bringing in, and let's give Eno a shot here. Let's if we know this is just an offensive line issue, but yes, he is still making some questionable calls. Not saying he's totally off the hook, but I'm just saying, the man's 3 games into this season, and you're already. I mean, so that's where this overreaction. Yes, there is a lot of frustration, but there's a lot of overreaction.
And then, like, to this comment, what are your thoughts on changing over? We're not going to change conferences. There's too much money in the SEC. It's not going to happen. It's never going to happen.
The conference yet. Arkansas is not changing the conference yet.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
I mean, the money. No, they're. I mean, that's the thing. The money's too. And listen, and let's just be honest here. Could you imagine the fallout of all these teams are wanting to be in the SEC, and you're the one that leaves?
Mm-hmm.
That you're giving yourself your own dissonance.
Well, and let's keep going. Let's just take that as if we're gonna flirt with this idea. Let's go a step further. We move to a lesser conference, and what happens when we don't win it? Mm-hmm. Do you downfall even more? Does it spiral out of control even more at that point?
Yeah. And Matt, again, Enos isn't the answer. We don't know that yet. We can't say he doesn't have enough time. This is why I bring Sam Pittman in this. We're in year 4 with him. We're in year 4 with him. It's the thing that I want to see. If this would have been a hard fought game between the two, if Arkansas was pushing and getting the run game, if they were showing signs that this was just two giants going at each other, I would have a different outlook on this game. But when you see the way BYU was manhandling us and just you're giving a 14-point lead up and then a 10-point lead up, this wasn't no back and forth 7 trading blows. I mean, Arkansas had a chance 2 times to put this thing away, and they let them come back into it. And a game that honestly half the BYU fans were just happy to come out here. And that's where the frustration lies on that part of it, is because you got manhandled. And when you're talking about we're stronger, we're faster in this, you got to prove it. And in that last drive, the offensive line, the penalties, they were just gassed. I know there was a lot of players, a lot of people going after singular players, which we will never do singularly on this platform. But when you see guys that are captains of the squad just gassed and committing penalties, and I've seen one play where it's just you're just throwing your hands up in the air like I got beat. I mean, that's where you know that something has to change.
Yeah, and I mean, we talked about when Latham was out, and him coming back and like, oh, that's going to fix all the offensive line woes. And here we were last night. I mean, he was like a lot of the offensive line, about a half step or step behind, and the pulling at the jersey. I mean, it was just blatant. There should have been more holds called than there were. And I know that's for most games in general, but there was a lot that was not called last night. And I'm not going to blame the refs or anything. Never put the game in the hands of a ref. No. Because there was stuff both ways that wasn't called.
The only one that I will throw into question was the substitution one, where I didn't get how I didn't see the late substitution. I didn't see that part where, and the only reason why I question that is because for the one time they got a quick count off and threw the out route, and he was going to take it.
He was gone. Yeah.
That was the only play where I'm like, hey, did the refs cost us a touchdown? That was the only point. But to the ref comment, you could see the white hats his demeanor at the end, it was like rolling his eyes. Here we go, another penalty. They're going to kill us. I mean, that's what the referee is like. They're going to kill us. We're calling so many flags, but when you're doing that over and over and over, and BYU was getting called for penalties as well. I mean, I think, let's see,
they had 12 or
7 for 45 yards, and Arkansas had 14 for. So you had a good running back day when it come to your penalty yardage. 14 carries for 125 yards of penalties.
I mean, there's always going to be missed calls in game. I think one blatant missed call was a late hit on KJ. It was
the one that they called on. I don't know who it was. He rushed around. He barely tapped.
He barely tapped him, and the roughing the passer on that one. I mean, it's they called the roughing the passer on BYU's quarterback. Then KJ's laying on the ground and gets laid on by an offensive lineman, and they don't throw anything with the ref standing right there.
Yeah,
but neither one of those plays affected the outcome of the game.
That one old boy that tackled him and done kind of the gator roll and then stood over KJ. I mean, that was another one that, hey, that should have been, because it was right in front of the ref.
It was right in front of the refs, and his teammates were pulling him back because he was about to keep going with it. And I didn't know if that was just, his statement. And honestly, we can get mad as fans all that we want. Quincy McAdoo did the exact same thing against Kansas in the Liberty Bowl. Yeah. So,
well, and it's almost like a coach getting a technical foul on purpose. You're trying to set a tone or spark your guys. And I think that, look at another one, and I hate that the dude got hurt. But you look at that Colorado State game, and the guy, it was a dirty hit. It was a blatant hit. But he was setting a tone like, dude, all we heard all week is Colorado. I want to do the best I can to be like, look, we're here. Yes, I hate that the dude got hurt. I know that it sucks that, he ended up going to the hospital, and then he's going to be out a few weeks. But they were talking about the 08 OU Florida game, and Major White, it wasn't OU, it might have been, I think it was OU Florida, but it was Major White hit the OU guy. I mean, just launched into it. Yeah, it was a flag, but he's like, I was setting setting the tone for that game. I mean, it's one of them deals. You're coming into an environment, SEC environment, student sections painted up, welcome to the SEC. Then the guy throws that. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, he was standing over him and whatnot, but it's still, you show a team. It's like that old cliche about that Mike Tyson thing. Everybody has a plan until they get hit in the mouth. Well, if you hit Arkansas in the mouth, be like, hey, you went up 14-0 on us, but we're back. That sets the tone of that game. Yeah,
I'm kind of over a lot of the welcome to the SEC stuff. It just means like, the SEC, a lot of the SEC talk comes from not from Alabama, not from Georgia, not from the top tier SEC schools. It comes from everybody kind of hanging on to, we're a part of the best conference in the country. And, doing things like that when then, you beat BYU in their house last year. We talked with Jake on last week, and he said, I asked him flat out, is it a revenge game? And, they could play it down like it wasn't because there were 60 new players on that roster because of the portal and everything else. But, to the players that were there, it was.
Yeah.
And, it's one of those, everybody saw the video, or most people did, of, BYU couldn't find Arkansas. Players couldn't find Arkansas on the map, didn't know where it was. But if you listen to, you also heard players in the background that was kind of like, who cares?
Yeah.
Like, why, it's not that big of a deal. And, that, in my opinion, is probably the right mindset.
Mm-hmm.
They were focused. They had a mission, and they accomplished it.
That's funny. You brought in, they had a mission.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny, that you catch more flies with honey than vinegar. They donate to the food bank that they bring. They run out with the flag, which, I mean, I've reached out to multiple BYU guys, Jake and the sports radio team, that we really appreciate the kind gestures and how the fans were treated and stuff. And, it's one of the things that it's like they were softening us up a little bit. And, I even put out there saying, all right, when Satania took the punt back, or AJ, one of the plays, I said, all right, I love the gestures, but it's business time now. And of course, after the ending, BYU fans said, well, the business is closed. I deserve those things, because, it's those are the clapbacks that, hey, look, there's nothing you can do about it. But all in all, I'll say this is, we're in a new era of college football, transfer portal, NIL. We got to be able to accept the good. The players got to be able to accept the good, but we've also got to be able to handle the criticism. Mm-hmm. You are getting money now. You want to, get, some players are getting six figures. Some players across the country are making $1 million deals. They're making more money as college athletes, rightfully so. They should be. But listen, you're in a different era of they're not technically kids. They are getting paid to play this game. I don't care if you're getting paid $1,000 to play this game, or if you're getting paid $500,000 to play this game. You're getting paid to play this game. So therefore, now, do I want people to go at them personally? Do I want, and this is NFL, you shouldn't go at anybody personally. Stephen A. Smith taught us this. You could talk about someone's play on the field. You could say, hey, they missed that block, or they did this. But when you take it to a personal level and start attacking them personally as a human being, that's where that line's drawn. You don't ever attack someone as a human being, or their personal, or go after their families, or go into their relatives' DMs or their DMs. And like you said, the Brandon Allen effect, But we have to sit here we can't be sunshine pumpers. We have to sit here and talk about the truth of, if somebody's missing blocks, if the offensive line's not doing their job, we got to hold them to the same level. And that's part of that expectations is you want more, as in you want to be paid for your name, image, and likeness. Well, if that likeness is not there at that moment, that's all right to sit there and say that, hey, that was a game you should have won. You weren't doing your job. Therefore, you got to handle those. Now, we can't sit here and say, well, this dude's trash or he sucks. We just got to come out and say, call it out is.
Oh, yeah. Because, we've talked about before, the coaches are going to put who they think is the best man in the position at the time on the field. So call them out for what they did on the field. Don't call them out as a person. Don't go after them. We saw all over Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it, players being called out. You had current and former players defending them, which I'm all for. But at the same time, it comes with the territory.
We know who the person is. We know, we're not going to name names. He didn't attack the dude as a person. All he said was that person should not play another snap. Mm-hmm. Hey, you know what? That's nothing against his character. That is a frustration you're putting out there. And I know this person's well known for picking fights or trolling. But when you're saying those type of things, I don't see nothing wrong with it, because you're airing your frustrations of this guy should never play another snap again. Or I think they should fire Sam Pittman. I think they should fire Dan Enos. Now, we don't have to agree or disagree with what they said. But
and that's what people are going to have to understand too, is when you put it out there, you've also got to accept the criticism and the comments that you're going to get back for what you typed or what you said, or which a lot of people can't handle. They want to put it out there, but they don't want to take it back in. So, but it's like, we should be able to air our grievances and with the players. If he thought that guy shouldn't play on their step, so be it. That's his opinion. He's entitled to it.
Yeah, and that's where, of course, if the players want to come to the defense and they, hey, that's awesome. I love that, pro ex-players are coming after, the team and standing by that. That's a brotherhood. That's the way it should be. It's just the fact that I do think in this instance, he was getting unfair treatment of, he was acting like he was going to him personally as a man, as his character, when that's not the case.
100%.
That's, we got to call a spade, and we don't have to like what everybody does, but there's sometimes be like, well, he didn't mean it that way. They're just like what we were talking about with the hits. He stood over him. We don't have to, he should have got flagged for that, but he was also setting a tone for the game. So therefore, I don't know. It's social media has brought a lot to where people, like I said, they have opinions, but they want everybody to have their same opinion. And we got to realize that we're not going to have the same opinions. Me and you are not going to have the same opinions, but yet when we don't, I'd rather it not be that way, because that makes better for us to sit there and talk about different opinions and talk it out, opposed to, well, you don't believe what I believe, therefore I want to have somebody on here that just believes everything I believe in. And you don't get anywhere like that.
Well, just like coaches don't want yes men on their staff. You don't want to sit. This would be boring if we sat here and had the exact same ideals day in, day out. Yeah.
And it's tough. It's one of them, I'll take a page out of my buddy Phil Elson's book, used to do on Wednesdays. And he on Wednesdays, he'd kind of fold up his paper on the radio and toss it away. Now we have to, move our focus to the boot in LSU. And on Wednesday evening, we're going to have Blake Ruffino on, our guy over at AYS Sports. Always a pleasure having him on to preview the game. And I know right now it's one of them that standing now, a lot of people don't have Arkansas having a chance in this game, but this is going to be a proving ground. This is going to be a proving week. Not saying that it's not impossible for Arkansas to turn around and win this game, because they do always play LSU tough. It's one of them games that I said that I really like this being the first SEC game. Now, whether offensive line shows up or the offensive goes stagnant, for a whole quarter or whatever, that's to be seen. But I'm really interested to see how this team bounces back and how they are ready to face, because you're going into LSU in Death Valley on a Saturday night. Not much of a bigger challenge than that.
No, there's really not. Even today it was tough to, to go ahead and make the game week and game day graphics, but it's just like, we've got to move on from it.
Exactly.
It's tough. So, tomorrow's a new day. After today, we'll reference the BYU game, but it's time to move on.
Yeah. And that's where we'll end this show. Thank you for everybody coming on and again, joining us and airing out your grievances. We love every one of your comments. And again, you can comment anything you want, and we don't have to really like or agree with what you say, but we're going to air it out. And if we agree, we're going to sit there and we're going to answer it. We're going to talk about it. We're not just going to show the comments we like. If we totally disagree with a comment, we'll give you a chance. Like Matt, he had numerous points that were against what we thought or what he thought. And that's where we get places. That's what makes the conversation. That's what makes this fun, is talking things out and really having differences of opinions and having conversations, because you don't see that too often. Adam, you got anything else?
Oh, I think I am BYU'd out for the night.
All right. For Adam Hall, I'm Porter Hayes. Thank you again for so much for joining us. Brought to you by Bet Online and Arkansas Brewing Company, part of the Believe Network. And we will catch you on Wednesday night.
See you then.